This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Healthy Business Podcast. I am Sarah Cook and I'm joined by the wonderful Naomi Smith, and she calls herself the Balanced Kiwi, and it's all about health and wellness and more specifically around nutritional therapy and kinesiology. And I'm so excited to be talking to Naomi today. She is amazing at what she does, and I know we're going to really learn not just tips, but actually practical steps on how we can support our health, that we can really grow our business as well, because we all know that we are our biggest asset, and that is super important when we're scaling a business. So Naomi, thank you for joining me. Super happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Sarah, for having me. It's just an absolute pleasure to be on your podcast and talking about the thing that I love most in this world. So thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited for our conversation. And, you know, I think people will have guessed very quickly the reason behind your name, Balanced Kiwi, is from your accent, which I know you've just got back from a wonderful trip out in New Zealand, catching up with family as well. So brilliant to have you here. One of the questions that I ask all of my guests right at the beginning of every guest episode is what a healthy business means to you. And I would love your take on this. I could probably guess a few things, but I would love your take on what a healthy business.
So a healthy business to me is one that is fulfilling, really. It needs to be something that is fulfilling in every single day and something that you're passionate about and love showing up for and being present in. So, you know, that's whether you're working with clients in an office, you know, you need to be really happy and passionate about doing the work and just being present for people and yourself. And it should be aligned to your values as well, and therefore makes us feel good and with integrity. I think that's a huge piece of that too, which will also then drive the passion. And also it should be rewarding and not just financially. You know, rewarding for me is something that also meets a number of key areas in your life. So, you know, allowing time for that, whether it be for family, for self, for friends. Rewarding is yes, it's financial, but it has to meet all those other things to create a really flexible lifestyle that works for you as well. So that would be how I would think that the perfectly healthy business should look and feel.
Oh, you covered so many things there. I think you're so right. It's really important to have that. The results, yes, but as you say, it's that inner fulfillment, that happiness, and the other parts of reward that aren't just financial is really key as well. And I know you're so passionate about having that lifestyle as well, that is that balance side of things. You know, it is, yes, it's about working in a way that feels good, but actually doing things in a way that feels good, and that comes from our inner health and health. I think health is almost, when we think about health, people always think about the physical health or emotional health, and that is important, but actually, you know, how fulfilled you are, the meaning of it, how rewarded you feel, the happiness, the passionate side of things, that has to come through, and that is all part of health as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, I think when we hear that word health, people just automatically assume that it has to be like a physical or mental aspect. And also, often when we talk about health, people always assume a negative connotation with it. But it means so many things, you know, and that's why the health and wellness piece together is huge, because it literally affects everything and every thought process and everything we do. Literally, it's not just defined as one thing; it's generally everything around us as well. So, yeah.
So important. And I think it's one of the things that I see from business owners, that they're pushing so hard for results, and they want the strategy and they want all of those things, and that's brilliant, but actually none of that can happen if we aren't in the right mindset, or we don't have the energy to be able to support actually implementing that strategy as well, or even of the products and services that we are putting out there. And so many people come to me and say, oh, just really struggling with sleep, or really struggling with energy, like, how do I do this? And I think those are two key things. And I remember having conversations even with my own doctor last year, and she was just like, well, you're just a busy mum. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of know enough about myself and health to realize that this isn't necessarily a normal phase or whatever. And, our bodies change, our lifestyles change, and that's all okay, but we still need the energy. And I think we're very good from a societal perspective of just going, but we're all busy. Stress is there. Stress is normal. Like, life should be tricky. And I really want to challenge that. And I really want to kind of have that conversation, I suppose. I think more time we have this conversation of actually we can find easier ways to do things, or ways to support ourselves as business owners, as mums, as carers, whatever that looks like outside of business, to be able to feel happy and have that emotional well-being as well as physical well-being. What are your thoughts on that? I'd love to kind of delve into this more.
Yeah, so there's a few things that you've just mentioned in there already, and that's the thing. I don't think this has to be complicated for people. I think people often think this has to be really hard work to change how we're feeling, or it's going to cost a lot of money to change how I'm feeling. And actually, it could be really simple. I mean, we were talking about water before, but even just a glass of water, like, I don't think people, and probably 95% of people that I see are dehydrated, and they just don't even realize, and I think people think they can survive on, a few glasses of water, or they just feel thirsty. But actually, if you're drinking because you're thirsty, you've often left it too late. And the power of even just a glass of water is huge, just even from mental clarity, to stand up and stretch. It's just simple little things that we can incorporate even when we're really busy, that can be done, that help us create more energy. And on the sleep thing too, like, sleep is obviously a huge aspect for people. I think particularly when it comes to sort of slowing down in the evening and switching off our brain. We do live in a world that is just crazy busy with, lots of external factors, things that, a couple of generations ago were just never on the radar, and as a mum especially, the things also, you add in all the school bits and all the extra admin that goes with that, and kids to look after and feed. And, it's on top of that, trying to also work, have our life, worry about all of those things for the family. I mean, it's just, how can we find the simple ways to switch off in the evening? And I have done some presentations on this, and sleep is one that I'm quite passionate about too, because it's not complicated, but it does require some change to habits. And I think that's the thing. If you're prepared to just make a few tweaks and try to recreate a new habit, actually some of these things could be making your life so much easier. Stress is something that we definitely all have. Again, this world is just full of it these days in a way that I don't think it ever used to be. But again, I think when we think about our approach to stress, it's often our own mindset or our choice on how we react to the things going on around us. And, we do have a choice about how we react to things. And, again, I sort of put it in the, is it something to really give my energy to bucket? Like, is this something that I really need to worry about and stress now? Or is it something that I can just pop in that bin, and let it pass through? Because, and actually a wonderful example is my partner the other day had a blood test for something, and there was a slightly high level on something. And, he literally was having a meltdown about this. And, we had these conversations. It was like, but why are you choosing to be this wound up? I mean, it was literally taking over his entire life. And, we had a few sort of, arguments about this as well, because, I couldn't see why he was making a choice to worry about something that was A, out of his control at that time, and also B, something that he really didn't have any information to suggest it was bad. So when he did actually go a week later to get a bit more of an in-depth diagnosis, it turns out that this original little result had actually been incorrect, and everything was perfect. So I just was sort of like, so here we are a week later, all the stress, all the tears, all the upset, all the worry. And, was it worth it? Like, actually, if we just put it in that bucket of, well, we don't have any direct need at the moment to worry or stress about that, we could have just carried on, and so much energy could have been saved from that. And I think, it's human nature. I think we do have a tendency sometimes to sort of want to maybe worry or be concerned or make sure things are okay. But equally, it's a little bit of stress is healthy. I do think that we need to be a bit challenged, and a bit of stress on the body is not a bad thing. We're designed to handle that, and it's good for us. But I do think there's a massive piece on the mindset around our approach to stress, and just making a choice when things happen. If things are making us feel like we want to be stressed, I think we just need to ask ourselves those simple questions of, is this really something that I can influence or control right now? Is this something that I really, really need to upset the course of my day or my life right now to worry about? Or can it be managed in another way or another thought process, or in the worry about later bucket,
I love
anyway,
that.
so I know that I've talked a lot about that same topic, but it's, I see so many people just choosing that path of worry and stress, when sometimes it's just about stop, breathe, just take a second, and then, then reflect on it. Is it really something that we need to take on board right now?
So important to remember that. And I think, when we're in business, or even just in life in general, as you were saying, curveballs can come left field, and they're always going to come left field. Like, we don't plan for curveballs. We don't expect things to go wrong. But I think it's almost that expectation, isn't there, that we know there are going to be challenges in life. We know that things are not always going to go simply, smoothly, plain sailing, however you want to describe it. That, as you say, we get to choose how we respond to that. And if we acknowledge that challenges are going to happen, and, whatever you call them, obstacles, road bumps, then I think it's just, how do we navigate through that? Because being stuck in that place, it's not actually going to help you. It's not going to help anyone around you, other than making you feel uncomfortable. And that stress can have a massive impact on your health, as well as then the decisions that you make around that as well. And it's really interesting. And I see this all the time, just personally, as well as other people, running their businesses. Things don't always go to plan, and that's okay. It is life. But again, as you said, how we choose to navigate through that, around that, just makes such a difference. And, I've been learning all about this from a sort of positive psychology perspective, that is there really any point in dwelling on it? And of course, as you say, a bit of stress is actually really useful. That adrenaline, that kind of fire, we want to, we are natural fixers as human beings. But does it need to be done in that instant with that fire energy? Or does it need to be parked in the bucket of, I can't deal with this now because there's nothing actually I can do about it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of my favorite little
examples
of this too, which I'm sure people can relate to, is that feeling of being late for something. And I used to get this a lot when I was living and working in London. Inevitably, most days on public transport, I would be maybe sitting on a bus or a tube, and would be running late, and I knew that I was going to be late for work. And and it was amazing that process of, oh my God, and the worry, and I'm going to be late, and oh my God, and what are people going to think? But at the end of the day, it's like, again, it was a good opportunity for me to practice the self-talk around, well, at the end of the day, it's outside of my influence right now. Even if I'd left a bit earlier that day, if there's been, a tube delay or accidents happen, there's actually nothing you can do while you're sitting there to control the outcome of that. So actually, me spending the next, say, 20, 30 minutes stressed and worried about that is going to just mean that I'm going to turn up to work, even more stressed, even more worried, not getting a good start to my working day. I can't change that. And, and even though I don't have to do the tube and bus anymore, these things can happen also just driving in the car. But is it really worth us sitting there stressing in a car with lots of traffic around us, potentially going to have an accident because you're so worried about that? Then actually just sitting back, taking a breath, just going, what, it is what it is. And that's also okay. And I will get there when I get there. And then we start afresh, I
had exactly that situation last week. I was doing a client strategy day in London, and I was driving, and what should have taken me a 45-minute journey was over 2 hours, because there was an accident ahead of me and I literally couldn't do anything about it. I mean, I'd left an hour and a half knowing that it was going to take 45 minutes. So I'd left plenty of time to get there early and all that. And you do have that panic, especially when someone is waiting for you. And I just went into that exactly as you said, and just went, do you know what? If I'd have left any earlier, I could have been in that accident. And I've now actually got this time to listen to a podcast, do some self-development, or get into that space of reframe rather than stressing about it. Of course, I let the client know. And actually, I was only about 20 minutes late from when I should have been there because I'd left plenty of time. But I could have spent that whole 2 hours stressing and stressing and stressing. And as you say, that's not going to help anyone. And actually certainly wouldn't have helped my client, as I'd have turned up stressed and she wouldn't have got the best out of me. So I love that idea of choosing the moment as to how to react. I have got a question for you though around this, because we all deal with different people, whether it's someone that as a colleague or family member or someone in our team, where they might choose to react differently, a bit like your partner. How do you help somebody else manage that if you are, because I think a lot of us, especially us women, dare I say it, are quite good in kind of managing things and kind of juggling and reframing stuff. If we recognize somebody else is not so good at it, how do we help, not coach them, but how do we help them reframe things and going, actually, let's think about this from a different perspective? Because I know that can feel quite challenging for some people, especially if it's someone in your team, or maybe it's a client of yours. Then you're thinking, gosh, this is heavy. How do I help them move through this? What are your sort of recommendations on that?
So that's a great question, and I think it's also, and there's also going to be two types of people: those that also want to help themselves through that, and those that don't. And I say that because often, like, for example, if it was a client, they're probably going to be talking to you about that anyway, because they want your support through that and they're willing to take things on board and talk with you. If it's, often even a friend, if someone's approached you to talk about stuff, then they're maybe more likely to be wanting to be helped to calm down or have a different approach. I guess, I love the word reframe. I think it's really important to sort of help them sort of understand that there's not just a one scenario in their head around whatever might be going on. I think my first port of call is normally, and even for myself, it is just stop, take a breath, take a couple of breaths. Right. So then we're breathing again and we're thinking a bit more calmly. And then I think it is just about, so what is the issue? Let's look at that as a fact and go, well, just break it down. And again, there's different layers of stress. There's the choosing to worry about the blood test that wasn't actually saying anything either way. There's also the level of stress that actually, my car has just been hit. I'm a bit shaken up, So, but I guess the same tactic of, the stop, breathe, calm the mind, and then let's talk this through. If it's someone that genuinely has had a shock and the stress is quite sort of real and they just need sort of calming, then, depending on who it is too, like, a hug, a cup of tea, just talk it out, let them speak, actually might just be the thing to just get it off their chest and move on. If it's someone that's sort of choosing to dwell on a scenario, that might not be the case, that they're just firing off down that rabbit hole, not realizing that there's actually loads of other paths that it could be. I think it's just, again, helping them understand that actually, until we sort of get to that path, we don't know either way. It's sort of just reminding ourselves and them of, what the actual facts are. And, again, I think that one of my favorite quotes is, for things to change, first I must change. And I love that for so many reasons, but it is ultimately that point of, look, for anything to change ultimately in your environment, and it can be any environment, but in your life, if you need things to be different, you actually have to change something first. And that might be changing something physically with yourself, mentally with yourself. It also could be changing something about your attitude, the environment in which you're in. But ultimately, something has to shift, or the decision needs to come from you, or a change to happen, Yeah. So, if you're going to, there are some people, I know a couple that just want to stay on the path of stress, and there's actually not much you can do about that, and that's okay, because that's their choice, and that's, that's their journey. But there's also so many people out there who I genuinely don't think they want to be feeling so stressed all the time. They just don't have the tools around them and the coping mechanisms to know kind of how to get out of that. So there's an article that I wrote, which I don't mind sharing with you, on stress, actually. And in that, there were sort of a number of different little tips and tricks, if you like, to sort of manage your way through that. And some of them could just be simple as some lymphatic points, and ESR sort of points that you can hold and rub if you're feeling stressed. There's just lots of little easy, simple little fixes in there that can help. And again, it doesn't just happen overnight. It is a habit. You'll often have the stress hit you, and it's a habit around fighting back with it and just saying, well, this is what's going on for me, and I don't want to take that on board. I don't want to give that to my energy. And I think too, like, especially, and you'll appreciate this with kids as well, but with my daughter, I feel like it's really my job as well to help her in this world to have those tools, because actually I don't think the world that we live in is necessarily going to get any easier around this. It's not just going to suddenly just become stress-free. So I think, it's actually my job to help support her and give her the tools. And, I can see that part of her too, that sometimes goes into the worry of something. And, again, it's just like, well, okay, what can we do about it? Is this really something that we want to waste our energy on? I think it's just having those conversations and giving her also the little tools that she needs if she needs to talk about something, or, if I'm not around, what could she do to help calm herself down or make a different choice, Yeah, it's so important to have that toolkit, I think. If people feel like they really don't have any support to get through stress, then definitely it's finding a few tips and tricks that work for you to help you get out of that state in a quick and easy manner. But I'm happy to share that article with you as well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll make sure that link goes into the show notes. So check that out as well. It's so useful, and it's an area that we could spend the whole whole podcast episode talking about. It's a huge one, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What I would love to kind of work through this is, because obviously it's one of those things, but actually, when we see it as kind of an emotional side of things, but actually it can have a huge impact on our physical side of things. And looking at how we can support ourselves from an energetic perspective, and boosting our energy, the hydration you spoke about, and actually our body being in its best physical form to be able to cope with some of these things as well, has a huge impact. We touched a little bit about sleep and rest, but share with me some other things that we can do to help boost our energy. Not the kind of the restful side of things, because I know you're a nutritional therapist, I know you're a kinesiologist, and just bringing in some of that around, what actually helps not just lift our spirits, but actually, thrive in life, rather than feeling like we're on this kind of constant treadmill of stress or, survival mode, because that's not fun for anybody. We want to be able to thrive. We want to be able to enjoy, and going back to that kind of happiness that we were talking about previously as well. So what are some kind of quick, it doesn't even have to be quick, but some tips that people could kind of introduce us? And as you say, it becomes habitual, doesn't it? As soon as we start having these as habits in our regular everyday, that's when it starts to make a change. It's not a kind of quick 1-minute hack and then everyone's sorted, but actually introducing some of these things into our everyday life.
Sure. Yeah. So again, energy, yep, it's a huge one, especially with sort of most people's diets today. That sort of has a sort of opposite of effect of what we're trying to achieve. So I guess quick wins for energy. So yes, there's the water. There's, where possible, even when you're really busy, trying to eat a bit more sort of fruit, veg, if you can, if your system will tolerate that. Obviously, if you've got other issues going on digestively, then maybe raw food isn't going to be the number one solution for you. But energy, like sort of nuts and things, if your diet can permit that, then some quick, easy sort of snacks can help with that. I think movement is huge as well. So even if you've got a really silly busy day and you feel like you can't even make time to do a half an hour workout with, I don't know, Joe Wicks, or get to the gym or go for a walk, get fresh air, get up and move. There's a lovely little thing that we used to do with the kinesiology too, which is something called cross crawl. Really simple, only needs to take a few minutes, but it's and I can't really obviously show you on a podcast, but yeah, it's just a very quick little movement. Basically, it's a coordination type movement with sort of hands and knees and hands and feet and stuff, but just as you're marching on the spot. And again, it's just a really quick, easy way if you're sort of stagnant in front of a laptop, or even if you have been moving around, but your mind is full. Sometimes if you have a job that you are moving, but your mind is just so chaotic and busy, go take yourself away for a few minutes at the coffee room, or outside, or in the toilets, wherever it needs to be, and just have that little break. Just give your mind some quiet space. I think all of these things ultimately do also help with the energy, because you're taking a break from the stress and the heavinesses that are weighing you down, and you're just blasting it for a minute. So again, those are the sort of the quick ones if you're in a really busy environment. Obviously, if you have a bit more time to play with, then, and this is a particularly good one for me, but I know that I don't function so well if I don't get exercise, and it affects so many areas of my life actually. And I've had to work quite hard now with my boundaries as well, which is something that I'm not always great with, to really try and prioritize that time. And I do have a gym, and I do have plenty of spaces outside to walk, which do help. But even when I've got a busy day, I do actually have the Body Coach app as well, because I know that's something that even if I'm stuck indoors on a freezing day in between calls or something, I can just go and take half an hour to quickly do that. And it's incredible, the difference mentally, physically, everything. It just boosts me really well. So there's always ways, depending on what time you do have, that you can make that work for energy. And also, this might not seem for most people like it's linked, but I do think self-talk also can be really helpful. That sort of positive self-talk. I know that I've had clients that have really struggled, and I think it's the self-talk saying, oh well, I can't do that, or I'm feeling low, or I'll just go into that place of not having myself feel energetic. And I think there's definitely something, again, with the mindset of, okay, how can you reframe that, or talk to yourself about something different, tell yourself you can, that you're worth it, that you are good at that. Even that self-talk makes you feel good, and therefore encourages this good energy to come out. It just comes out. If you, even the physical stance, if you sit there round-shouldered feeling low about yourself, then your energy is also very low. If you stand up tall and you're telling yourself, actually, you can do this, you're great, carry on, and even if you just fool yourself, just say, I've got loads of energy. Again, I think it's just that mind shift. If you convince yourself that you have got it, you probably have got it. And they are all easily incorporated into your life. But again, it's just having those little tips and tricks in your toolbox, basically, to sort of help you get out of the funk that you're in, and get up and moving, really. So yeah,
I think and the combination of all of those together is so important. And it's almost finding your own toolbox, isn't it? I remember struggling really badly last year with sleep, and waking up and just telling myself I was just so tired, like, how am I going to get through the day? And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to reframe this as I've got enough energy to do the things that I need to do that day. And it made such a difference to my mood, but also how productive I was, and that kind of thing. And yes, I was physically tired, but actually, because I told my mind, I was like, okay, what do I need to do then to allow myself to get through that day in a way that I need to? And I've obviously been working on my sleep and things, and I'm now in a much better place. But I think, it is that power of self-talk, or doing the things that you can do, like almost that self-awareness, like, when are you having those energy dips through the day? Like, shifting that and telling yourself, okay, well, if I know if after lunch I'm going to have an energy dip, what can you put in place? And this is where the habit comes in. Is it about going for a walk or doing some movement at that time that allows you to boost that energy rather than stay in that funk for longer? Because it's the power of it, the combination of things, I think. But you have to know where those triggers are for you and that self-development, but also that self-awareness piece is huge. And I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier about that self-responsibility of actually, if you wanting to have success in business, if you're wanting to feel happier or more energized in life, like, we have to work on ourselves. It is a constant journey. And I think that's really important to remember as well. It isn't just a, one thing that fixes all, because life changes and we have different days every day. And I think that's really important as well. One thing you touched on there was this kind of idea of, being mindful of what's going on. It is a link to that kind of self-awareness. And I know mindfulness is something that you're quite big on as well. If that's quite a, I know some people and some of the listeners might be thinking that mindfulness is a bit kind of woo-woo, or does it really work, or that kind of thing. And I want to bust a few myths around this a little bit, because for me, it is about that self-awareness and, actually being mindful of not just your thoughts, your actions, your beliefs, all that kind of thing. But there's so much more about mindfulness. And yeah, I'd love your take on this too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, when we think of mindfulness, I think there's lots of things that can be connected with that I know some people, particularly, living a busy corporate lives, it could feel a bit woo-woo, but actually, just again, like breaking it down, mindfulness is just literally being mindful of something. It's simply that. It's simply having a moment to be aware, to sort of think about that, to feel it in your head. It's, I think, again, anything that really is not so complicated, really. I love mindfulness simply because it literally, even just the word for me, makes me want to just stop and think and reflect. And it doesn't mean, it could be lots of things, yes, there's wonderful tools out there if you really want to explore just, even the meditation sort of side of that, yoga, all these things that help us for a longer space and time really hold on to the thoughts in our head. And I think, if that's your thing, then fantastic. I think there's some amazing benefits from that. But equally, to be mindful, even when you're busy with corporate, with business, with clients, being a mum, whatever it is, being mindful is just that thought process and awareness in your head, which only, I think, can serve to help you be better at anything that you put your hat to, really, because it just brings you into awareness of what is going on. It's, just a nice opportunity too, just to stop, isn't it? Being mindful, I love the word. It just makes me even feel calm. I just want to sit with that and just be reflective on a situation. So yeah, mindfulness is just great, because I just think in an instant it could actually just stop you. Again, even when you link that back to the stress thing earlier, just to be mindful is to just have that awareness of what's going on, what everybody could be thinking and feeling. I think it just helps you ask those inner questions, which again can only help you, I think, have a better approach, a better outlook to something, or do something differently, which will ultimately be a good thing. So yeah.
So important. It is that connection of the body and the mind, and impact of all of that then has on your decisions, and then obviously what you do within your business and how you create success within that as well. One big thing we haven't really spoken about, and you being a nutritional therapist, is the kind of the food side of things. And I'd love to kind of, explore that a little bit more, because I think, again, when we talk about healthy food, we are all different, and the impact of different foods are going to play into that. I know we've talked a little bit about, snacks and the quick energy boosting side of things, but talk to me a little bit about how nutrition can actually play out to mindset, or not just physical. I think people assume that nutrition is directly related to physical health and the digestive system. We all know that our gut is second brain, and that has the impact of, from a mental and emotional side of things. What can people do? So if they are listening to this and thinking, yes, I know I need to increase my energy, I know I need to, add a bit more movement in. Let's talk about the sort of the nutritional therapy side of things, the actual food side of it, because nourishing us and the real foods that we're eating has such a big impact on everything.
Yeah. So, food is big. I think, again, I think the reason We have a lot of issues today too, with a lot of different sort of aspects of health and mental health as well. Is food has changed, and I think, I mean, we could talk a long time on this subject, so I will try to keep it really brief. But I think it's important just to acknowledge that there's lots of things in our world today that are really different to how they used to be. So foods have changed greatly. We go to a supermarket now and we literally are just blasted with so many processed foods. And even the ones that are advertising as healthy, often aren't, and again, depending on what people's needs are, I think it's always my top rule at the supermarket is just double check those ingredients at the back. And, if you, first of all, if you don't understand what half of them are saying or what they mean, then probably it's not going to be a good thing.
Yeah, so
and
true.
it should be simple. Yeah, exactly, right. Like even I look at some and I'm like, oh my God, what on earth is that? Never heard about that before. So I'm just, ideally you wouldn't have that as something in your staple pantry. So yeah, I think so life, I think what I'm trying to just say up front is that I know life doesn't make it easy for us. I think there's already kind of a wall there that we need to climb when we're trying to make good choices. But keeping it simple is really just trying to have whole foods and, foods that are just in their natural form. Even if you don't choose organic, again, that's another topic. Organic is great, obviously, as well. But even if you don't go organic, just try to keep it simple when you're choosing foods. And I think the idea about, having a balanced plate is just fantastic. Like I think that's, certainly when I'm doing all my coaching as well, this is a big bit that comes up for people. There's lots of different foods that you can have, and I'm definitely not somebody that wants people to start cutting out lots of food, unless you have to for a short period of time to get through a particular health issue. I want people to enjoy food, and I, for one, love my food. I just, I've always grown up having a real appreciation for food. There's not much actually that I wouldn't eat. So the importance of having a meal that is balanced, again, is just one thing that I would advise anyone to do. And really from the purpose of just making sure our blood sugars are stable, because obviously when they're not, we have all sorts of things that go on around that, whether it be weight gain or, again, we have the low energy dips, especially when our meals aren't balanced. So again, it's quite linked to a lot of things. So if we can just keep our snacks and our meals balanced, and when I say balanced, I mean having a mix of, a protein with a healthy fat, and it can be a carb, so you can have carbs as well, but obviously we've got our different types of carbs. And I know I don't have time really to, obviously this isn't a nutritional lesson, but just keeping it simple with our food, and just trying to make sure that with each meal you've got a blend of one of those, a couple of those in a meal. And again, carbs can get a bad rep. But again, I think it's just being careful of the type of carbs that we're having and the quantities. I think I want to get into a place with, people that they can still enjoy their food. But sometimes we do just need to make moderations around that. And I try where possible, myself, but also to encourage others that I'm working with to sort of follow that sort of 80-20 or even 90-10 kind of guidance rule, which, again, it's to say you don't have to be so rigid and cut out stuff all the time. If you are majority of the time making sensible choices, good, simple, easy choices, then it's okay to go out and have that meal out or splurge on that ice cream if you want it when you're on holiday. We should be able to do these things. I think the one thing I don't think we should be doing is taking out some of the enjoyment of our lives, because, that whole thing about being fulfilled and feeling good, all of those things are connected. And, but actually the reality is we don't feel fulfilled and good when we're all the time eating food that isn't good for us. So I think depending on what stage of the journey you're at with that, some of us know what we're doing already. Some of us generally eat pretty well, but, even if you're not, sometimes just making those simple changes, to a meal or to that habit of where you're picking up your breakfast or your coffee. You know, again, it could just be starting with one simple change just to sort of amend that cycle. So yeah, you know, keeping it balanced, keeping it simple really, and just, you know, finding time to enjoy that. And I think, you know, sometimes when people are making drastic changes for a while, they're sort of, their taste buds are, you know, going crazy and they're like, oh, this is awful. But the reality is actually, you know, it does take a few weeks to build a habit and for us to eliminate things out of our system. You know, I usually say to people it take at least sort of 28 days to do that. And then once you sort of push through that barrier, actually, you know, people find that actually, wow, this is actually just a whole world of gorgeousness that I just didn't know existed, you know. So yeah, so that's sort of, I guess, my overall sort of guidance on sort of healthy meals and healthy eating.
Because I think it is a big thing, because, you know, when we are busy, we tend to go for the quick and the easy, whether it's food options or snack options. And yeah, it kind of goes back to that mindfulness, doesn't it? Of actually, is this nourishing my body? Is this making me feel good longer term, not just in that 2 seconds of eating whatever, but recognizing that we can indulge in those things. Like, I love that 80-20 rule of just going, do you know what? If I want to have that ice cream or that chocolate or whatever that looks like I'm a massive chocolate lover, but I don't eat it all the time because I know that long term it's going to have that energy drop rather than, you know, when I'll look at doing something else. And it's just, it goes back to that self-awareness, I think, as well, doesn't it, of what is the impact on you and how you feel afterwards. But really recognizing that everything that we've spoken about, like, it can feel quite overwhelming if you're in a space of, you know, going, oh, I need to change all of these things. This isn't the purpose of this episode. This was just to kind of, you know, highlight some ways that you can feel more balanced, feel healthier, create more simplicity in your life. Because actually, when you've got those things, that has a huge impact on how you feel, but also then clarity of mind, how quickly you make decisions or how quickly you stay feeling stuck. And that then has an impact on you personally, but also the people who are around you, the success of your business and all that kind of thing. And I think it is so intrinsic. You know, it's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Healthy Wealthy Business, because I truly believe that there is that combination between the two. And, you know, you read so many health things and read so many business books, and like, actually, they are so intrinsic between the two. Because if you're not in the space to have the energy or the mindset or whatever to be able to grow your business in the way that you want, then there is going to be a disconnect. Plus, as we were talking about earlier, you want to have that happiness, you want to have that fulfillment, you want to feel the joy, and running your business shouldn't add to stress. It can feel hard, it can feel stressful, it can feel overwhelming, but if your body is also in that place as well, then it feels a lot harder. So giving yourself those best tools is really important.
I completely agree. And I'm a massive fan of simplicity. So, you know, obviously balance is my thing, but simplicity is just the most amazing thing. You know, things shouldn't be complicated. Well, not everything anyway. And, you know, like you say, as a business owner, I think, gosh, you know, and you know, there's lots of people out there with their own, you know, have their own business, but they could be a mum. They might have other external factors with either family or life going on. And, you know, and some of these things we can't change, but, you know, keeping things simple to sort of create that change that we need to help us feel better, to get out of bed in the morning, to make progress, to live our life how we want it lived. You know, it is possible, and it doesn't have to be complicated, you know, and just the power to that you can just, that self-empowerment, being able to just achieve those things for yourself is huge, you know. So yeah, so simplicity is key.
That feels like a really lovely roundup of everything we've been talking about. So if people are listening to this and thinking, I just need more simplicity, I want to have more balance, where can they come and find you? Where's the best place to connect with you?
So I have a website, thebalancedkiwi.com. I am also on Facebook as a Balanced Kiwi, and also Instagram. I am generally around and always available to answer messages, or even if people just want to have a quick chat with me informally, I'm always happy to schedule time in for people. So yeah, just feel free to reach out with anything big or small.
Amazing. Oh, I loved our conversation. I feel like we could talk about this all day. So thank you so much for joining me, Naomi, on the Healthy Business Podcast. I'm Sarah Cook. Hope you guys have enjoyed listening to it, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. You can get a copy of my best-selling book, Healthy You, Wealthy Business, over on my website, sarahcookcoaching.com/book. In there, you'll find practical advice, useful tools, and real actionable steps to help you be your best self and build a wildly successful business with ease, so that you can create a limitless life in the way that you choose.